Now, the story is personal and something I've never told. No matter how hard it is to say it, it's something that I have to tell. Now, I know I'm not showing my face, but behind a screen, it's a little easier to say. I know it's not manly to cower behind some image, but I just, uh, I just can't. Where to begin? I guess, I guess it has to be, like this. I used to love driving. It gave me a peace of mind that I really couldn't get anywhere else. Work was always work. Relationships were never easy. But when I drove, it felt like all of that just went away. Like nothing existed. It was just me, hunk of metal and rubber going down a road. But when there is fog, when there is fog, I always stand on edge. It's not that my car drives horrible. It's not that I drive horrible. Even then, my car always did me good. No matter if it was rain, sleet, or snow, I could drive through it. It was a small red 1993 pickup. The alignment was busted, only steering to the right a bit, but I always pulled it straight. Never really gave me any problems. Gas mileage was shit, but other than that, it was and still is a fine piece of metal. It's the fog. My hometown has always had a problem with it. See, once in a while a thick fog would roll in and everyone just stopped dead in their tracks. You see, at a certain point in the town's history, they decided that if the fog rolls in at dawn, no one, is allowed to leave their homes. That's reasonable. This fog is the worst you've ever seen, and if you've ever been in fog, you know or a bad one, you know how hard it is to see. But this one, you barely see your own nose. And I'm not even joking. But this was never a problem for me, because I just did as I was told. Sure, I heard the stories, dead bodies that you would find across someone's lawn, but I never really believed them. I always thought they were rumors by some high school kids, you know? And when I left, I was just a kid. I knew every time the fog rolled in, someone would wind up dead. But it happened so rarely. I just thought it was some god-awful coincidence. It was always a heart attack here, or suicide there. All natural. Even done by human hands seems sort of natural. None of that is my story. Point was, it was ingrained into all of us to sort of avoid the fog. But I guess it all really started with a phone call. I hadn't been back to my home in over 10 years. Now it's been about 5. I didn't want to go back, because my mom and pa weren't the best of folks. And the people there, they were okay, but most of them never really got along, per se. But one night, I get a call from the sheriff's office telling me they died from shock. Both ingested something that they were allergic to and choked on their own spit. There's some medical term, he said, but basically they died. So as their only known family member, I was required to deal with their proceedings. So the next morning, I packed a bag to leave that afternoon. I didn't pack much, wasn't planning on staying very long, so just about a few days worth of clothes. Called my boss, told him I'd be out for a few days, drove south to my off-the-map hometown. Wasn't actually off the map, just you wouldn't see it on Google. Most you could find it on was a county map. Small dot in a small county. That was most of the knowledge of this place. I was probably the only one to have left that town in all of its history. I felt pride in that. Finally, someone would bring some attention to this town. Or at least someone was finally leaving. Couldn't really tell. You see, I was supposed to do great things, but really I just wanted to get away from my piece of shit family. The drive there was peaceful. Always is. The rolling hills, forests covering the horizon, and tall grass. It was that perfect view. A nice baby blue sky and fluffy cotton candy clouds. The road was black and smooth. South was running in my blood, and the more I went, the more I flew. Driving never held me down. It always made me fly above the surface. I was a bird looking down on myself and soaring. My wheels were wings, and I was in a spaceship flying across the stars, and damn, it felt good. But all drives come to an end, and sadly I was in that town quicker than I wanted. The welcome sign brought me back to life. It was a little too late. My heart was beating fast, like as if I was a kid again, but I knew I had nothing to worry about, so I kept going. I ignored my beating heart and pushed on to the station. It was about then I realized how quiet it was, how eerily silent it was. There was no true welcome. There was no cars on the road, no old men mowing their lawns. It wasn't like I remembered. Even the little kids I was so used to seeing play on the street were gone. It was about then I realized what I'd been driving in. Fog. I was too blinded by the smooth road and too blinded by my parents' death to realize what I was in. It was then everything went bad. The fog got thicker. So thick I couldn't see the road anymore. I could barely see the red of my car at that point. I knew I couldn't drive in this. I'd end up plowing through someone's home, so I stopped. Right in the middle of the road. My beams were on, but that didn't help, so I did something real stupid. But what probably saved my life. I turned off my car. Gave no indication that I was there, so if some other unlucky person was driving, I'd be unlucky with them. I just hoped at that moment everyone in my town still followed that rule. However, rules didn't really matter at that point. I don't know if I was the one to cause it, but what happened around me still sends chills through my bones. First, it was just the sound of wind against my car. The fog softly blowing around it, slowly forming a mold around my car, condensing more and more. The light slowly became lost, and darkness spread across my windshield. The gray slowly became a deep black, as if I was stuck between the stars with no way to escape. The black seemed to seep into my windows, covering my eyes. I was only left with my ears and the sensation of sitting in my seat. Then it was the scratches. My car was slowly being scratched. The only reason why I noticed was because it sounded like when I keyed my father's car when I was a kid. It was slow, deliberate, but it sounded like there were multiple at the same time. It lasted for about a minute. I heard it raise from the door into the window to my left, then it stopped. It was quiet then. My heart slowed down to a regular pace. I just tried to stay still. It felt like all I could do. It felt like things had subsided, but something was still nagging my brain. The memories of all the tragedy that followed the fog, even quick cover-ups started flooding into my head. The memories of all the deaths, the accidents. It started creeping in and worry set on me. Anxiety seemed to punch a hole in my chest, a deep, gaping hole. I finally realized why the fog worried people so much. The screams gradually penetrated my ears, the wailing cries of the kids being ripped from their homes. Their screams were quick, loud, but they died quickly. Even from where I was, blood sprayed onto my car. I could see it at first. I couldn't see it, but I heard it. Then came the thud, and the sound of my front window cracking. I could almost feel the heat from its dying little body. He was just about 6, still had some fight in him, but his gasp for air as he spit up blood didn't last long as my window shattered from the pressure of some unknown entity. The elderly came next. They screamed the softest, grunting really, but damn, some of them lasted so long. Just Over and over I heard their flesh being ripped off their bones. I could hear it whiz past my now open car. Why hadn't it killed me? I wondered that as the screams continued, and I still wonder it today. Before long, every house, every store, every person in this god-awful town was dead. Every single one of them. I couldn't see yet, but I knew. The screaming had stopped, and the fog slowly started to lighten. It was so quiet then. My mind had stopped working. I was a still, senseless creature. Blood filled my car, and I could feel its warmth as it mingled with the shards of glass. I stared for about 10 minutes before I heard the breathing. I had the strange optimism that the kid that had his throat ripped out and his chest impaled was somehow still alive. But that only lasted a second, as I felt its cold breath blown in my face. It waited. It knew. It stared directly into my eyes, waiting for them to dilate. It knew the fog was subsiding, and it wanted me to see it. Its wide eyes, its pale face, its wicked grin, so human but so monstrous. I knew then that I had seen it before, but that thought was too late, as it took one of my eyes. It carefully and slowly clawed it out of my face. I tried to scream, but it held my mouth shut and almost laughed as I looked at it with such confusion. With my eye in its left hand, it brought it to its mouth and motioned me to be quiet. The last thing I saw was its wide Cheshire cat smile. It quickly passed out from, my eye being ripped out of my skull. Woke up the next day outside city limits, far from my small rural town. I was still in my car then, all bloodied. The police questioned me for hours, but I couldn't say much more than a grunt. PTSD. Or that's what the doctors say when I tell them this story. It's easier for the brain to cope. You probably think so too, right? A fantasy to hide what really happened. If only that were true. If only that fog still didn't roll in wherever I go. I might believe them. But funny enough, the doctors seem to be the ones always out on their lawn.